We're back with the CHARA Project. I'm Heather.
I'm Sarah.
And we're on day 8 of our 12-day journey through the Christmas story. We're doing bite-sized podcasts that coincide with our Hope Have Come cards that you can download directly from our website that's walking through the Christmas story. Our hope is that you can study the Christmas story on your own or with your family and get engaged to understand the reason for the season. This day we are focused on, and day 8 is focused on the Bethlehem, the city of Bethlehem, if I remember correctly. Sarah, where are we going to go from here?
Well, because we're focusing on Bethlehem, I thought out of the CHARA Bible Study guide here, we were trying to highlight one question. And the question that we're going to highlight today is really a history question, and it's where? It's like, where do these events take place? And how does the Bible describe them? And for today, really, why is Bethlehem significant?
Well, because there's a Christmas story that goes along, or a Christmas song, isn't it? Oh, little town of Bethlehem, how still we see thee lie. Heather's, of course, always going to sing on on camera, but it also goes on to say, but for Christ is born to Mary and gathered all above. You know, it's a beautiful Christmas carol that really is focusing on this little town in Bethlehem where Jesus was born.
No, you're right. And because of that carol, even people maybe who aren't as familiar with the Christmas story in the Bible, like we've heard of Bethlehem.
Yeah, we have.
You know, why is it so important? Why do we hear about it around Christmas time?
Yeah.
So that's what we want to look at today. Mainly the answer to that is it was known that the Messiah, the promised Messiah, would be born in Bethlehem. And we see this when we read the story of the wise men, actually, which we will get to on day 12. But the wise men who come to Jerusalem, and they asked, where is he who has been born King of the Jews? And the Jewish chief priests and scribes, they knew the answer. And in Matthew 2, 5 through 6, it says, in Bethlehem of Judea, they told him, because this is what was written by the prophet. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, because out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel.
You know, it's interesting because my study Bible notes actually in cross references point to the fact that this is quoting a prophet Micah in Micah 5 verse 2. So it's obviously that they're hearkening to where they're pulling it from. They knew that the Messiah was going to be born in Bethlehem. Absolutely.
So Mary's going to give birth in Bethlehem. This we've learned, but there's just one problem. She actually isn't in Bethlehem right now. She's late in her pregnancy, but she's not in Bethlehem. She's actually in Nazareth in Galilee, some 90 miles north of Bethlehem.
So how does that play out then? How does she end up getting to Bethlehem, and giving birth there?
Right. Well, we find the answer to that in today's story. So we pick back up. We're going to be in Luke now. Today's reading is in Luke 2, 1 through 7, and I'm going to read out of the New Living Translation. And it says, at that time, the Roman Emperor Augustus decreed that a census should be taken throughout the Roman Empire. All returned to their own ancestral towns to register for the census. And because Joseph, this is Mary's fiance Joseph, was a descendant of King David, he had to go to Bethlehem in Judea, David's ancient home. He traveled there from the village of Nazareth in Galilee. He took with him Mary, to whom he was engaged, who was now expecting a child. And while they were there, the time came for her baby to be born. She gave birth to her firstborn son. She wrapped him snugly in strips of cloth and laid him in a manger, because there was no lodging available for them. So Augustus initiates this census for the purpose of taxation and military services. But at this time, the census had been kind of done irregularly, but Augustus actually revives them during his reign. And by AD 6, a wide-scale census was taken every 14 years. So during a census, generally only the head of household was required to return to the town of his ancestral roots. And Joseph was a descendant of David. So Joseph, again, Mary's fiance, he was a descendant of David. So Joseph returned to Bethlehem, where King David grew up. And this is why Bethlehem is often also referred to as the city of David.
Well, you mentioned that generally only the head of households were the ones that would return to their ancestral town. So why did Joseph take Mary along with, at this point, they weren't even married. So I think they were still engaged. What was the purpose or reason behind him wanting to bring Mary too?
Isn't that an interesting question? It's one that I don't know that I had really put much thought to before. And honestly, we don't know. We don't really know the answer.
Yeah, the Bible doesn't necessarily articulate the reasons behind it.
There's some speculation and a couple of different thoughts here. Perhaps Joseph didn't want to leave Mary this late in her pregnancy, and perhaps Mary didn't have great support back at home, from her family and friends, because she's this unwed, pregnant woman. And at that time, she might have received some rejection. So perhaps Joseph just doesn't want to leave her behind. Also, it kind of makes me wonder if Joseph knew that the Messiah was prophesied to be born in Bethlehem, and that's why he took Mary with him. But even if that were the case, even if Joseph does know this, I mean, the scribes and the Pharisees know this, it's pretty well known, so maybe Joseph knows this. But do Mary and Joseph actually understand that the child that Mary is carrying is the promised Messiah? Can they actually grasp the magnitude of what is happening at this moment? I really wonder.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point.
Right? So either way, God uses this pagan emperor's decree to get them to Bethlehem, the very town their child was prophesied to be born in.
So if we were to go back to the CHARA Bible Study guide, the question that you had originally asked from our history section about where does this narrative take place, where was it written, what can we learn about the town and travel, the location listed in the Bible we can often overlook. No offense to some of the locations, but it's like, okay, he was in the town of such and such, and
right?
Why do you can just skim over and move along on some of the details. Yeah. But in this case, knowing the where is kind of important and really does make a huge difference for a couple of reasons. Number one, the fact that Jesus' birth fulfills prophecy of where he was going to be born helps the Jewish people know that he was the promised Savior.
Yeah, this is him.
That's huge. That's huge all on its own.
It is.
But then you add in that the story itself comes pretty much to life, like a lot more, at least, I've been pregnant before. I know how hard it is to just sometimes even like walk in the mall, let alone the fact that you have a pregnant young woman that has to make a 90-mile trek across the desert in order to give birth to her firstborn son. And not only that, but she does it in a cave. Like just the location of where these things took place brings it to life a lot more.
Right. And the question we ask on this day is one of my favorite questions, I think, that we ask in these. And it's, do you believe that obedience to God should result in a comfortable life? How does Joseph and Mary's journey tell you God has a purpose even when things are inconvenient or uncomfortable? Yeah. Right? Like I think we do fall into that trap. Like, and if I was Mary, I can't help but wonder that I would not be, it'd be hard pressed not to focus on, this 90-mile trek, right? Like this probably 3-day journey or even longer, that she had to give birth in a cave, which was meant to shelter livestock because there's no room for her anywhere else. Yeah. Or even the fact that she's laying her baby, this promised, child, in a manger, which was it was a trough for animals. And so when I think when we focus on some of those hardships, or you receive a promise, you believe you receive a promise from God, and then you're like, wait a minute, wasn't it all supposed to come out a little bit smoother than this?
Well, yeah, but God doesn't make promises that we're supposed to be comfortable. In fact, the Bible doesn't promise comfort at all on this side of heaven. Jesus talks about how we're gonna, that life isn't gonna be easy if you're a follower of His. That was never the intent to say you're going to be comfortable.
Yeah. And I think we need to remember that because we can fall into that trap so easily that, gosh, I'm obedient. I'm a good Christian. I'm whatever, and yet why is my life not turning out more comfortably, easier, whatever?
Well, right? And the mother of the Messiah wasn't comfortable. Yeah. If the mother of the Messiah wasn't comfortable, why do we believe that we should have anything more comfortable?
And Luke is really, the author, again, Luke here is really emphasizing the humble beginnings of the Savior.
Absolutely.
I wanted to finish with this quote from the New Living Bible. It's a New Living Translation. It's a life application Bible. And I loved what they said here, so I wanted to just quote it. He says, sometimes we think to ourselves, I'm being obedient, so why aren't things going better? We face discomfort or inconvenience and immediately think either that we have misread God's will or that God has made a mistake. But watch this quiet couple as they head toward Bethlehem. God did not soften Joseph's bumpy road, but strengthened him. God did not provide a luxurious inn for Joseph and Mary, but brought his son into the world in a humble surroundings. When we do God's will, we are not guaranteed comfort and convenience, but we are promised that everything, even discomfort and inconvenience, has meaning in God's plan.
Oh, that's so beautiful, Sarah. I thank you for bringing this story to life, not only about the location and how important the location can be in understanding the Christmas story, but also what a great challenge to think about that a comfortable life doesn't mean that we're outside, or an uncomfortable life means we're outside the will of God, or that that's not connected. The fact that there is meaning in God's plan and in our life, regardless of what our circumstances look like, is a theme we see throughout the Bible, but one that absolutely is emphasized in the story. So I appreciate you taking us through the story of Bethlehem. If you are wanting to engage in the Christmas story alongside with us, make sure you download the Hope Have Come cards that are available on our website, and then stay tuned as we join us for day 9 as we continue in our journey of the Christmas story. Thanks for joining us.